Hey, good morning. Welcome to Oasis. It is great to see you guys, man. We're so excited you're here. In fact, we're going to have the lights come up. Come on, pull all the lights up today because we got some stuff we'll be reading on today together. My name is Jeremy. Welcome to Oasis Church. Before we go any further, let me just pause and say it was awesome to be in the back and to see you guys worshiping Jesus this morning. It was amazing to see again that you guys were engaged and not only clapping but lifting your hearts and your hands to worship. So I just want to encourage you. That last song we did, it was our first time doing it here at Oasis Church, and it didn't look like it. It looked like you guys knew it, and we're all part of it and engaged in that. And so what an exciting opportunity to worship together. So thank you for being part of that, and thank you Samuel and James and Josh and Alan for leading us in worship this morning. Thank you guys so much for just engaging our hearts this morning. That's what we're here for as a church. We can gather together and worship and sing and make much of the name of Jesus because he has done so much for us. So I'm so excited to be here. If you brought, maybe you read the notes on your phone. Those are available in the Bible.com app, the YouVersion app, or at oasisnfl.info. I encourage you to follow on because we're in chapter 2, actually week 2 of our Cannonball series. And basically we said we are starting our 10th year of ministry as a church. And it's time for us to make a big splash and to realize that we can continue to make a big splash together. So that's what Cannonball is all about. It is a 2-year vision giving campaign that we are kicking off and kicked off last week that we're in the middle of right now of just presenting and unfolding. And so we have a brochure that we're going to be passing out to you right now. So we're going to have our First Impressions guest services team. And if you can help out as well, if you need a brochure, raise your hand and we're going to give those to you. That might be everybody in here. Might need a brochure. So we're going to just pass those out as quickly as possible and get a bunch of brochures out to everybody. But basically, this idea here is a vision campaign. We want to recognize this is a vision initiative that we feel that God has led us to and where we are going as a church. And so if this is your first time, I want you to sit back and relax because we're not going to ask you on your first Sunday to join into our giving campaign, but actually you have a front row seat to kind of get a behind the scenes picture of where we feel God is leading our church and where we feel God is doing in us and in our community. And so you kind of can kind of observe and check that out. But basically, this series, we kind of challenge is for people who Oasis Church is not just, can I get one too, Mary Beth? Can I get one too as well? That'd be great. So it's not just for people, thank you very much, thank you. It's not just for people who attend Oasis Church. This is for people who say Oasis Church is my church, that this is where. And just so you know, Oasis Church is not just the church I work at. Just so you know, okay? It's not just the church I work at. It's my church. This is our church. We are all in and we want to be engaged and fully engaged to where God is leading us. And so we're excited again to see what God will do and to realize that as together, if we are able to be all in, we're able to make a big splash together. And the reason why we want to do this is we've seen God use Oasis Church in our lives. We've seen God use Oasis Church to encourage us, to challenge us, to equip us, to push us forward in our following of Jesus and our loving of people and our refreshing the world. Maybe we've seen God use Oasis Church in someone that we love, that God's used Oasis Church maybe to introduce them to Jesus or to bring them back to church after many years away, for whatever reason that might be. And so we want to recognize again, because God is doing a work here, we want to continue it. We want to expand on it. We want to pray through that and dream and see big things that God would use us to do big things in our life as a church. And so as we get in today, I'm just going to spend a few moments just kind of unpacking a little bit of what's on the inside, and then we'll jump into our teaching and our challenge for today. So if you open it up, basically you see the goal of this 2-year giving campaign, the goal of this kind of this vision initiative that we're starting. And there's a 4-fold goal there, but actually 2 of them we can kind of lump together. So I'm going to start with number 1 and number 3. So number 1 and number 3, they can kind of go together, okay? So basically these are building property improvements that we are seeking to do here at a church, at Oasis Church on our property here at 422 New Berlin. And so basically, you know that we don't really have a lobby here. We kind of walk in, we have a little buffer, if you will, to kind of keep the AC in. That's kind of why there's the double doors there to kind of do that. But we don't really have a lobby to hang out, a lobby to be together, a lobby for maybe for guests, for next steps, or to figure out, okay, how do I find resources and further my walk? Where do I sign up to be part of a circle? We don't have a single playground piece of equipment at all on this property, and we have a lot of kids and a lot of families that we're seeking to reach and engage further in our community. And so our first step is this kind of an outdoor atrium. So when you walk out there, we kind of want to say, okay, how can we kind of transform this? We're going to need to add some more shaded areas, some more space attached to the building that we can allow maybe to have our refreshments and our guest services outside in a welcoming environment, some outdoor furniture, and then an outdoor play area that we can actually have covered as well. So we want to be able to have a place for our kids to engage, because if our kids are engaged, then as parents, we're not in a rush to get away. We can kind of hang out a little bit, and we want this to kind of be another opportunity for us to connect further at a church, even just outside. And you may not know this, but just about every day of the week, we have people who are using our buildings and using our property because that's how God has given us the gift of a property. We want to be able to be a gift and leverage our community to be able to use it as well. And so we have a homeschool that meets as our co-op here on Tuesdays. We have a Girl Scouts and that troop that meets on Tuesday evenings. We have we have Generation Next that meets a couple nights a week and on Fridays with teens. And we have Grace House Counseling Center. We have multiple people on our campus all the time. And so we want to create a space that maybe not just even used for Sunday morning, it can be used throughout the whole week. And so we want to be able to leverage that. So we're kind of thinking of an outdoor atrium, looking at a beautification type deal thing. We might get rid of those spray painted black traffic cones. Those might be removed, just so you know. We're hoping they'll be removed very, very soon, all right? And so again, that will create some safety for us as we're kind of out there as well. So we want to understand that. So that's the first part. And then secondly would be auditorium improvements. That kind of falls under that one idea of property improvements. And basically, we need to paint our auditorium building here. We need to address the flooring and the bathrooms, because as I believe, it may have been 25 years that these flooring and these bathrooms have served this building and served this property. That's an amazing time period to serve. But as we know, at your house, again, you're going to update things from time to time. It's time to update our flooring, to update, renovate our bathrooms, and kind of look at some of those areas as well. It's time to refresh the paint of our auditorium here. And then we want to look at our space and say, okay, maybe we can create some space that would allow for some extra circle groups to be able to form here, or other small breakout rooms here in the auditorium, or maybe we can create a space that would be for maybe like a cry room, where someone that brings their baby in and the baby is going to act like a baby because that's what babies do. And instead of being embarrassed or having to miss service, maybe we can kind of create a space that would be kind of a welcoming environment for the mom and for the baby, and be able to let the kids run around and still be able to engage the message. We have a couple of things that we're thinking through. That just takes money. That's the business side of understanding what it is to be an organization and a church. And so we kind of feel, again, this is where kind of God is leading us to make the most of the buildings that we have and to leverage them, and to kind of look forward to say, okay, God, we believe, again, if we do this, we could take our mind off of these things and put them more toward mission, put them more toward outside things once we address these areas. The second thing I want to look at there is this idea of a church plant. Now, we as a church, we are a church plant. We're just simply 10 years old. So we've been growing in the ground for 10 years, but there was a group of people in South Florida who said, we're going to send you out, Jeremy. We're going to send you and your family, you and Janine and your kids. We're going to send you out, and we believe, again, that God is working in your life and that God is calling you to plant a new work, and that work is and was here in North Jacksonville. And so just as we are a church plant, we want to be a people who are going to continue planting as well. We recognize that's a sign of maturity. Okay, when you plant an apple tree, that apple tree is mature when it produces apples that have seeds in them. And so we recognize, again, as that apple falls to the ground, it can cause new apple trees to form. That's the thing, same thing for us. We want to be a mature church, and part of that is recognize, okay, we are able to plant other churches. We don't wait till we're a certain age or wait till we're a certain size, a group of people. We can plant right now. And so one of our ideas is to have, the way we want to leverage this is not only partner with church planting organizations, but actually begin and have new locations locations of Oasis Church throughout Northeast Florida. And our goal is to find, okay, where are there communities that don't have a refreshing church experience like we are aiming to be as a church? And how can we leverage what God is doing and come alongside that community and plant a location there? And these locations would be united by our vision, by our mission, by our teaching, but they would be for that community. And so we want to leverage that. And some of the ideas for that, we started in the movie theater. So it might be that we'll rent space in a movie theater or a school and start there. It might be more mobile, like a pop-up location. We can try for in this neighborhood for a little while and kind of see if we can get some traction and some leverage there. Or maybe, again, there's a bar or a nightclub that's not open on a Sunday morning. We want to go, okay, we can jump in there. We can be a part of that. We want to realize, again, that there are many different ways to have church and to have locations of church, because church is a people. And wherever God's people are gathered, that is a church. And so we don't want to force people to come to 422 New Berlin if they live in a community that's not close to here. But instead, we want to go to that community and leverage, again, buildings that are there and locations that are there and see, again, what God will do. And so this is a vision initiative. It's a generosity. Some of you are still wrapping your mind around what does that look like? And it's amazing to see, again, what God does. And so we want to be a part of that and not be held back by anything, by fear, or by finances, if we feel that God is opening up an opportunity in a certain community to join in there, whether that be Northeast Florida or Southeast Georgia. We want to do whatever it takes to further and build other plants and other locations of Oasis Church. And then lastly, the fourth thing I want to cover today is this idea of next generation. And so we want to take some time and have some strategic planning. And so by planning, I mean, okay, what would a kids building look like on this property? Where would it go? What would it look like to have drawings drawn up and to be able to kind of see, okay, what might need to be done? So that's going to require some strategic planning beyond just a napkin, okay? It's going to require architectural drawings. It's going to require some money to be involved in that as well. We want to go, okay, God, you've given us this property. How can we leverage it to continue to reach the next generation? By that, I mean kids and middle schoolers and high schoolers. What does that look like for us? So we want to make sure we're ready for that. But then also, okay, God, we want to understand, okay, if you're calling us to this, we need full-time missionaries to reach kids. We need full-time missionaries to reach middle schools and high schools. And that's what youth pastors are and kids pastors are. And so we want to recognize, okay, it's going to take planning to set aside money and to recognize, okay, we want to be able to hire people that will be fully engaged when it comes to reaching the next generation, come alongside our team and our staff and leverage where we're already at. And again, as we add locations, what does that look like to kind of further that idea as well? And so these are our four main things that we're seeking to pray about and connect over and have the goal to be able to raising money, raising finances, and giving toward over the next 2 years. And the reason why, again, next generation is so important is we see, again, in Psalms chapter 22, verse 30 and 31, we see the psalmist praising God, and here's what he's recognizing. Here's the reality. He says, our children will also serve him. Future generations will hear about the wonders of the Lord. His righteous acts will be told to those not yet born. They will hear about everything he has done. And at some level, I want you to know this, at some level, this verse is true right here. There were people who gave to this building that they don't know us and we don't know them. There were people in our families that were not yet born when the money was raised to pay for these buildings here. And this verse has come true because that generation was faithful. And to recognize again that we're going to leverage our resources, we're going to leverage our time, we're going to leverage even the future to set aside money, to set aside time, to set aside finances for a building so that kids will hear the gospel, kids that they have never met. And the same thing is true for us. We want to recognize as we give today, we're giving to impact the future. We're giving to impact families. We're giving to impact people that we may never meet. Just like 10 years ago, people gave to start Oasis Church North Florida. And most of you have never met them and they've never met you. But they gave by faith. And they were willing to say, okay, I can send my money to Jacksonville, and I can send my money to 10 years in the future to see again what God will do to impact even today. And so that's kind of the mission, that's kind of the vision behind where we're going today. And so I'm going to humbly ask everyone who calls Oasis Church, this is your home. I'm going to humbly ask you to be praying about what is your involvement. And here's what I'm asking. I'm asking for us to have 100%, and I'm praying that we will have 100% engagement. That at some level, we will be all in. Now, just so you know, I'm not asking one person to take care of all of it. just so you know, all right? Because we look at the numbers, we look at the goal, we like, that's some of that seems pretty steep or kind of big. But listen, well, if we are all in, if we are 100% engaged at some level, there's so much we can do. There's such a splash that we can make when we join Cannonball, join arms, and realize that we can be all in together. And so next Sunday, March 4th, is going to be our commitment Sunday, okay? So I'm going to be challenging you to be praying to say, okay, God, what can we do? What can our family do to be part of Cannonball, to leverage, again, what God is calling us? And so I'm humbly asking you to be a part of this. And as we set and look our eyes ahead, here's where we're kind of going for today. The first thing is this. As we look ahead to Commitment Sunday, I want to challenge you to plan your Cannonball. Okay, to plan your Cannonball. Be willing to make a sacrifice. Okay, so when you are about to jump in the pool and you realize, okay, there is someone right close to the edge, I can really get them wet. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome. Right? You plan your Cannonball. You plan, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run over here, and I'm going to launch off this deck chair, and I hope it holds me and doesn't slide out of the way, and I'm going to just kind of angle my feet. And you're planning all that's going to happen in your mind. You are planning your Cannonball. You are preparing, and you know already it's going to be epic because you're really good at cannonballs, all right? And the same thing is true here. I want us to plan our Cannonball. I want us to begin to think through, okay, what might this look like for us to give a portion of our money, to give a portion over the next 2 years. I want us to be willing to plan through and say, what might it look like and what might I be willing to sacrifice? So if you're going to make a big cannonball and you're planning that and you're about to jump in the pool, you're willing to sacrifice maybe your reputation, okay? Because you might make an idiot of yourself. That might happen, all right? So you might be willing to do that. You might be willing to sacrifice, I said, your body, all right? My body is going to hurt, but it's going to be so amazing. It's going to be awesome. So you're planning to sacrifice some things. That person might have their phone in their pocket. You might have your phone in your pocket. You are willing to make that sacrifice to get them wet. You're willing to do whatever it takes. And if it's that way for the cannonball jumping in the pool, at some level, we need to be willing to say, okay, God, what might you be calling us to do to make a sacrifice in my life? And we realize that in Matthew 6:19, Jesus is talking again of the importance of treasure, the importance of money, but the importance of where your treasure is located. To recognize again that there's something bigger than just our life. And so he says, don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them and where thieves break in and steal. Instead, he says, store your treasures where? In heaven. Store your treasures in heaven where moths and rust cannot destroy and thieves do not break and steal. And then he says, wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. And so he's saying, listen, I want you to understand this. Life is different than just what you see. Life is more than just what we can touch right here in the present. Jesus is saying, listen, there is a higher calling. There is an eternal perspective that we need to have. And when it comes to treasure, and when it comes to things that we build up, we want to recognize again that we can't just be only focused on the here and now. We need to have a different perspective on the money that God has given to us. We need to realize that we need to have an internal perspective. And then it says this idea of wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. We recognize that our motives can catch up with our money. That as we put our money at a certain place, our heart goes to that. We recognize again that we might not always feel like giving. I don't know about you, but that's me. I don't always feel like giving. I can make a case sometimes where it doesn't make sense to be generous, but we recognize that Jesus is saying, listen, if you put your money there, then your heart follows it. If you put your money there, even if I don't feel like it, you're able to recognize, okay, my heart is able to be drawn, and my motives can be drawn and catch up with where I'm putting my money. I'm making a decision. I'm planning where it's going to go. And so we want to recognize again that as we give based on the fact that it honors God. And as we build his church, we recognize again that he's called us to this moment. And we recognize again that we get to do this, that he is worthy of our praise. He is worthy of recognizing that we want people in the future to worship him, and he's worthy of us giving our all and planning how can we trust in you, how can we be generous in this area. And so we want to have an eternal perspective on our life. So here's what we're going to do. Right close to you, you should see a piece of paper like this, okay? You should see a piece of paper like this, all right? You can open that up, all right? It is a little measuring tape, all right? Little paper measuring tape there that we have, okay? And as you see that, okay, you're going to see inches, all right? You're going to see inches there, but then you're also going to see centimeters, okay? So we're going to focus on the centimeters there, just so you know, all right? So here's the first thing. I want you to find, on the centimeter side, what is your current age? Okay, what is your current age? Okay, for me, 44. Quattro. That's where I'm at, all right? So I'm going to rip at 44, okay? And you need to find your age and rip there, okay? All right, just rip it right into. So you got that right there, all right? All right? So on one hand, you have the 1 to whatever your age is. 1 to whatever your age is. Guess what? This is your past, all right? Crumple it up, throw it away. Nothing we can do about that. It's in the past. You're releasing yourself right now. It's on the floor, whatever it might be. There's your past, all right? It's in the past, okay? All right, so now you have your age. Here's where it gets a little tricky, okay? I want you to be optimistic here, okay? All right? But where do you think might be the number, the age where God might bring you home? All right? This might be like your last year. Again, be optimistic, all right? If you're not feeling good right now, give yourself an extra year, all right? I don't know, just give yourself, right? So be optimistic, all right? But pick that out. The Bible says, again, 70 years, right? Might be, again, the average age. I don't know what our average age now in America, if it's up or down from that, but pick an age, and just make a rip there, okay? You don't have to share that, just between you and the Lord, all right? My grandfather lived to be 100. 101? 100, okay, so that's pretty good, all right? Billy Graham, 99. I mean, incredible, almost 100, all right, to do that. That's incredible. So pick an age for you. I'm going to say, well, I don't eat very good. All right, Taco Bell, all right, 80. We'll go with 80. I was going to go 90, but I go to Taco Bell. All right, so here we go. 80, all right? All right, so the future of whence that's past again, you can kind of toss that aside. Here's our life. Here's our life. And again, that's optimistic. We don't really know the end of our life, right? But here's our perspective, right? So again, if you're teens, your tape, woo. If you're 44, your tape. If you're 64, or whatever it might be, right? So we recognize again, this is what we have left. And so the idea here is, what are we going to do with this? What will we do to leverage this that will impact eternity? What will we do with this that will have meaning after we are this and we're gone? What are we going to do with the time we have, the finances we have, the money we're going to make now, the future? What are we going to do with that? And so we want to recognize again that God is giving us this life. He's put eternity in our hearts. He knows at some level, every human knows there's something more than the life that we have just here on earth. There's something different. There's something beyond this. Again, that God has put that in us. And so the idea here is, what will we do with the time that we have? And as we think about that, I want to ask us a question. Where can we cut back for a season to impact eternity? Is there something that we look at that we can cut back for a season? Okay, I'm not asking you to cut back for the whole rest of your measuring tape, all right? I'm not asking that. But I'm saying for a season. What might we be able to cut back? I know for some, again, we gave this challenge when we planted the church, because we didn't start with church support. We started with people of the church support is how we started. And we had people say, you know what, I'm going to give up cable for 2 years. And the idea of what I would give there, I'm going to give toward Oasis Church North Florida. That's how we started. And so the idea of giving up cable, direct TV, hey, we picked a good time for this teaching. We didn't do this during football season, all right? We did it at the end of the Olympics. It's over, right? What are you going to do, all right? It just doesn't matter, right? So we're going to consider that, right? But the idea here is, what if we're going to cut the cable? What if we're going to cut direct TV? What if we're going to say, okay, for a time, not forever maybe, but for a time, we're going to make the sacrifice. I want to plant my Cannonball. I want to make the sacrifice and put that money I would spend there over toward that. For some, it might not be that, but it might be the idea of, entertainment. We're going to cut back on our entertainment. We're going to cut back on eating out, okay? Instead of eating out 4 times a week, we're going to eat out 2 times a week or 1 time a week. or to figure out what it might be. For some, it might be, I'm going to make coffee at home instead of Starbucks just renovated. They're just back open again. It's amazing. But like $5 for like a small coffee, right? I mean, that's like, okay, where can I begin to leverage? Where can I begin to make some sacrifices? Again, coffee, that's sacrifice, right? For some, it might be, I'm not going to get my nails did anymore for 2 weeks. I'm going to I'll do it myself or whatever. I don't know what it might be, all right? But here's the thing. Where? Is there some place that we can cut back for a season that might impact eternity? And I want to challenge you, be willing to pray, be willing to seek, be willing to ask God, God, show me, God, show us, our family. Where can we cut back? Where are we not being wise? Where are we being wise? And it's okay that we can just say, you know what? It's not right or wrong. It's not sin or not sin. But you know what? We're going to say no to that for a season in order to say yes to this giving initiative. And so we want to recognize that. And so again, if you have cable, listen, I'm probably coming to your house just so you know. So we can't all cut cable, just so you know. So one of us has to keep it. Then we'll all just go there to your house, right? Just do that, right? But we understand again, okay, we're going to make some sacrifice. We're going to trust God. And that goes into pray about your cannonball, okay? Pray about your cannonball. Okay? Usually when you're jumping in the pool, you probably don't pray about it, all right? But I'm encouraging us to pray about it. Where is God leading us? Where is God leading you? Where is God leading your family? In 1 Chronicles, we see King David. King David, the same guy who defeated Goliath early in his life. God blessed David's kingdom. God gave David authority. David was not a perfect king by any means, nor was he perfect when it comes to sin, and by any means, but God blessed him. And so near the end of David's life, God had in mind to build for God a temple. David said, you know what, I'm going to make a temple for you, a place for worship for you. And that's where he was leading. But God led David somewhere else. And God said, no, you're not going to build a temple, but your son will build a temple for me. And here's what David said. He said about this about God in 1 Chronicles 28:6. God said to me, your son Solomon will build my temple and its courtyards, for I have chosen him as my son, and I will be his father. So David had his mind. God led him in a different direction. David had a choice. Would he yield to God and follow God's leading, or would he stubbornly go about his own plan and do his own thing? And we see that in this case, David was willing to yield his will to follow God's leading. And we want to recognize again, okay, God, I have my will. We have our will as a family. God, what do you have for us? God, what do you want us to do? Where can we give and be willing to go where God leads you, to go where God leads your family? And so maybe our prayer is this week, God, show us what we can cut back. Show us what we can do maybe to increase our giving toward you. Maybe we can do something different that would allow us to leverage our measuring tape, our time left, to impact eternity. So here's the thing. Some of us go, what can I afford to give? And if you look inside the brochure again, there's some breakdown. We kind of see again the power of habits, the power of setting aside even a smaller amount and how that grows over a couple years. Some of us look at that and go, you know what, God, what can I afford to give? Or maybe we don't even say God, we just say, what can I afford to give? This is giving by reason. This is giving by saying, okay, here's what I think I can afford to give. But I want to challenge us to pray about our cannonball and ask a different question. God, how much do you want to give through me? God, how much do you want to give through me? You see, this is giving by revelation. This is where we realize again, okay, all the money belongs to God. All I am is simply a channel, a river, okay? That's all I am. And so we want to say, okay, God, that's not what I can afford, but God, how much do you want to give through me? This is putting God first. This is praying about this situation, asking God, where do you want to lead us? And so I want to encourage you as we lead up to next Sunday, you're going to be praying about this week, to pray about this each day. In fact, I want to encourage us, maybe some of us, maybe we're going to set aside Tuesday or Thursday. We're going to do a 24-hour fast just to say, you know what, I'm not going to eat or I'm not going to have any media that day, no TV at all. And I'm just going to focus. I'm going to pray, God, what do you want our family to do as we look ahead to this commitment? And we're going to have prayer reminders and prompts on our social media as well this week, just to kind of have our church be praying together. God, what do you want us to do? So plan your cannonball, pray about your cannonball, and then clear the path. Clear the path to your cannonball. Okay, we recognize, again, if you're jumping in the pool, you got to be saying, get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way. All right, I'm about to jump in. I'm about to do this. I don't want to take you out, especially if you're littler than me. That would be awful, all right? I don't want you to take me out, especially if you're bigger than me. Clear the path. I'm about to jump in this pool and make a huge splash. And the same thing is true when it comes to giving. We want to clear the path. And what's often gets in the way of our path is fear. We want to be at people who say, you know what, even when I'm afraid, because chances are the number that God may lay on your heart, the number that God might lead you and your family and me and my family, chances are that might be scary. Chances are that might be, there's no way. Chances are you might be like, you know what, I was thinking about looking for a different church anyway. Maybe I'll just look for another church, right? I don't know, right? I don't know, but there's going to be some fear there, right? There's going to be some scared. There's going to be some, what, God, what is going on? And where are you leading me to? Here's the thing. It's okay to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because God often leads us to things that might be scary. Because here's the deal. If we could accomplish it on our own, then where's the faith? If we could accomplish it on our own, we don't even need to pray about this. But what if God is calling us to trust in him? What if God is going to have this endeavor be a chance that we can grow in our faith and grow in seeking after him and see what God will do? Again, that's our private disciplines. The more that we give, the more that we're able to see God increase our confidence and trust in him. And here's the deal. We don't have a number that we're trying to get to. That's not the point. The goal is 100% engagement. The goal is that all of us would take a step of faith and see God grow us, to see God grow us in this area, to see God allow us to see again what we will do as we leverage this together. And so we go back to 1 Chronicles 28, and David has said, listen, my son Solomon, God told me that my son's going to build this temple. And so here's what he says. So now, with God as our witness, and in the sight of all Israel, the Lord's assembly, I give you this charge. Be careful to obey all the commands of the Lord your God. And we recognize that as that continues, he says, so that you may continue to possess this good land and leave it to your children as a permanent inheritance. So he challenges the whole assembly. Listen, follow all of God's leading. Follow all of God's commands. Be careful to obey them. And then he says, and Solomon, my son, learn to know the God of your ancestors intimately. Learn to be close with him. Learn to know his voice. Learn to know his hand as he leads and guides you. And that's why we said why God wants us to have big faith. He wants us to know him closely. He says, worship and serve him with your whole heart and a willing mind. For the Lord sees every heart and knows every plan and thought. If you seek him, you will find him. But if you forsake him, he will reject you forever. So just pause right there. Worship and serve him with your whole heart. Okay, we're going to be all in worshiping Christ. We're going to be all in. He's challenging Solomon. Don't go halfway. All right, don't kind of just maybe take a year off. No, be all in. For the Lord sees our hearts. The Lord knows our plans and thoughts. And the promise is that if you seek him, Solomon, you will find him. The same thing is true for us. We claim that truth for us in 2018. If we seek him, Oasis Church, we will find him. But if we forsake him, there's a rejection. There's a walking away. I don't want that for our church. I don't want that for my kids. I don't want that for your kids. I want that for you. I want us to be all in and following after Christ and seeking after him. And he says that you will reject you forever. And then verse 10, he says this to Solomon. So take this seriously. The Lord has chosen you to build a temple as a sanctuary. Be strong and do the work. And so that's what I want to challenge us. Again, we're not building a temple, two different things, okay? Just so understand that. But we understand again that God has brought us here for such a time as this. There's a challenge that he's given to his church. So I want to encourage you, let's take this seriously. Let's be willing to be strong even in the face of fear, to clear the path and to go about doing the work. Whole heart, whole mind. God knows our thoughts. God is able to understand our plans. We're able to trust in him in every area. We're able to recognize again that as there's fears, we can respond with faith and grow in faith as we trust in him. And then lastly, commit courageously to your cannonball. Once you start running to that pool, there is no turning back. All right, we got to go. All right, it's slippery and I might slip, but I can't stop. And now I am all in. That's the idea here of Commitment Sunday. We want to encourage you to be courageous in your commitment, to be recognizing again that as we give by faith and remain faithful, that is how we persevere. That is how we see God work in us. And so the idea of commit courageously says this: no matter what happens to the economy, I'm going to determine ahead of time that this is where God is leading me to go. No matter what happens in our family, I may not even live here in 2 years, right? But I'm going to commit courageously to whatever that amount is, that we're going to follow through on that commitment. We're going to be all in. We're going to determine that ahead of time. And to commit to that says, listen, I'm going to be a part of that. Now as a people, what do we want? We want clarity. We want guarantees. We want God saying, okay, God, if I give this amount, you're going to give this amount back, right? You're going to cover that back, maybe a little bit extra, right? There's a guarantee there. There is no guarantees, all right? There is faith. That's where we're at. At the end of our life, at the end of our tape measure, the worst thing, again, is not the fears. The worst thing is not the failures. The worst thing at the end of our tape measure is to look back and have regrets. If only I had fill in the blank. If only we had fill in the blank. And so the idea here is saying, okay, the idea is saying, what if we were able to live regret-free? What if we were able to live in a way that we say, we did all that we could do as God led us, and we're willing to do whatever it takes. See, I got a feeling, again, as Oasis Church, again, there are some of us here that say, you know what? I don't want to just live a normal life. I don't want to just be safe. One of the great quotes I love to quote is, I think it's from Tony Campola. He says this: all of us, what we try to do is we try to tiptoe through life so we can arrive at death's door safely. I don't want that for us. I want us to kind of have a little craziness in us where we're kind of like, you know what? Those people at Oasis, they're kind of crazy. Like, they actually believe God could actually do something. They actually believe that God, as they share the good news, that God can change a heart. They actually believe, again, that God can change a direction. They actually believe, again, that God can set people free from addictions. They actually believe, again, that what looks like it's broken, God can fix and repair and make new. That people at Oasis Church, they're kind of crazy. Like, they'd love like no other church that I've been a part of. And they have faith like no other church I've been a part of. What if that was our story? What if that was where God was leading us? And what if this was one of those moments to push us forward in that? I think, again, there's a heartbeat there for some of us. Say, you know what? That's what I want. I want to be a part of that. I want to see God move and do big things. And I think, again, part of that is just saying, listen, we want to commit to this. We determine that no matter what happens, we're going to be all in. And so Isaiah 32 verse 8 says this, that generous people plan to do what is generous, and they stand firm in their generosity. Okay, what that means is there's a plan there. You don't wake up at the end of one year, do your taxes like, wow, I don't know how it happened, but we were generous this year. It just kind of stumbled into it, and we just gave away money. That's weird. I don't know how that happened. No, that doesn't happen like that, all right? It actually has to be a plan. So we recognize, again, that it doesn't happen by accident, that we have to put a plan in place and say, God, here's where you're leading us. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to set this aside. And then lastly, as we go back to 1 Chronicles 28, David wraps up his charge to Solomon and to the people of Israel. And then he says this, David continued, be strong and courageous and do the work. Don't be afraid or discouraged. Why? For the Lord God, my God, is with you. So listen, as a people of God, as we pray, as we seek God, God, what would you have us to do? God, where would you have Oasis Church, us, my church, leverage its impact in our community to further your kingdom, God? To grow, again, where more and more people can hear the gospel, be changed, be saved, be baptized, be discipled, sent out in ministry, sent out on mission trips, sent out to serve their community. God, what would you have us to do? We recognize, again, that as we ask these prayers and as God leads us, don't be afraid or discouraged, for God is with us. God is with us. He is with us, and we recognize that we're able to do this together. So the goal, again, is not a set amount. That's not the goal. The goal is 100% engagement. All of us doing something. Our kids doing something. Our teens being part of this something. Recognize again, God, where would you have us to go? And so you can see again, there is that chart of accounts there that can kind of show, again, you might say, okay, I can't do that, but you can kind of say, okay, maybe I could do that a week or a month or set that aside. We're going to recognize again that this coming Sunday, March 4th is our Commitment Sunday. So I want to encourage you to be praying through that, and let's see what God will do as we actually write that number down and pray over it and see what God will do as we commit to give to Cannonball, as we commit to give to this initiative that would challenge us and stretch us and push us, again, to be the church that God would have us to do. And then we're going to put on our calendars, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but April 15th is a Sunday this year, okay? And we're going to have our day is, we're going to call it the Big Give, okay? We want to have perhaps our biggest offering that we're going to bring together on April 15th that would go toward Cannonball, that would go toward really launching this with a good, strong kickstart. So we have a couple weeks to think about that, to pray about that, to see again what God will do, to get your tax refunds, to take care of any debts that you have to your neighbor that you might need to take care of or whatever. Anything like that, we want to recognize, okay, this is what God was doing for us. And so we're going to be a part of that. It's going to be pretty cool to see what we'll do. I don't want you to miss any of the next 2 weeks. So make sure you're here next week and the following March 11th as we continue and further our Cannonball initiative. Now, just so you know, I'm talking about money for 30 minutes. That's scary, okay? Just so you know, right? And if you're a visitor of ours, and we're so glad you're here. Thank you for kind of seeing, again, behind the scenes. But I'm excited to see, again, what God will do. I'm excited to see what God will do as we leverage it and realize that we can make a difference, not only for today, but in the future. And I'm excited to see again that perhaps God will grow our faith. And maybe you're here today, listen. If you don't hear anything else, the main thing. Maybe you're here today and you need to realize, okay, that God has given everything for you. Okay, that reckless love song that we sang earlier, that he was willing to give it all and that you can't earn God's love, that you can't pay for God's love. You don't deserve God's love. The reason I say that is because I don't. None of us do, the Bible says. And yet God has given us an incredible love. And maybe you're here today and say, you know what? I don't know everything, but I know I need that love of God. I know I need what God has done for me. Then here's what God has done to show you the extent of his love. God sent Jesus, who was without sin. He lived a perfect life. And sin is anything you and I do that go against God, that's rebellious against God, that where we kind of say, God, I know you're over there. I'm going to play God at this point. I'm going to call the shots. And that's what the Bible says is sin. So Jesus went to the cross as a perfect person without sin. And what he did is he did a great exchange. He offers his perfection for our sin. He offers our disconnection with God and his connection with God, and he trades those. And he makes us as if we never sinned. This is the power of the cross. This is the extent of God's love that he gave for you, that he laid down his own, so he had his own son lay his life down and pay your penalty, pay my penalty for our sin and offer us life. Maybe you're here today, you say, you know what, if we talk about commitment and being courageous, I can't think of anything more committed than someone's willing to lay their life down for me. That's what Jesus has done for you. If you've never received salvation, if you've never received the love of Christ based on the work of Jesus on your behalf, then I want to encourage you right now. What better way than today to receive salvation, to receive a new way of life through Jesus, being brought to life and having a connection with God because of Jesus going to the cross, dying for your sins, being buried, and being risen again. You're able to call upon him today to save you and to be your Lord, to lead your life. And I would encourage you, if that's you, don't leave here today without knowing for sure that you're a follower of Christ. I'll be out there. I'd love to pray with you in person, give you some resources. I'd love to follow up with you further about this idea of receiving Christ and having everything be made new because Jesus changes everything. If you would, let's go in and close in a word of prayer today.